Welcome to the Newsome MMA Betting Podcast, sponsored by CBD Life UK. I'm your host, as always, Newsome, and tonight I'm joined once again by Jon Prentice, who'll be breaking down UFC 227 with me, which goes down this Saturday night in LA, California. Thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast again, Jon. How's it going, bro?
Thanks very much, man. Thanks for having me back. I didn't think I'd be inviting back after my record on the last one we did, Boise. I've had a little bit of stick about that. I think I was 50-50 on the fight, so a lot of people have said to me, get him a bit more right this time. But yeah,
Listen, it's all good. I think I'm about 50% hitting as well. But to be honest, it's a betting podcast, and it's cashing the bets that matter.
exactly.
There's a reason we
Okay,
don't bet on every fight.
exactly. I told them you're the betting man. I said if you want some tips on who to follow, it's you, not me.
Well, before we start and jump into it, I just want to remind anybody that's missed the announcement this week that the betting services on the Newsome MMA website are now active. So we've got temporary pages which are live, so you can go and grab yourself the premium bets, or you can take a look at the betting consultation service too. These pages are temporary until the betting packages launch in September, so be sure to visit newsomemma.co.uk to check out these premium services. So without further ado, let's break down UFC 227 from bottom to top, and in your first fight of the evening, we've got Marlon Vera against Walidi Buren. Two fighters that are both coming off losses. Marlon Vera coming off two losses. Not bad losses, though, in all fairness to him, but
No.
two fighters that also need to get a win under the belt. So, Jon, who have you got in this one?
Yeah, this one, like you say, both coming in off losses. I think it'll be loser gets cut, to be honest. I know Buren's only coming in off that one loss to Rolando D. But I mean, no offense to D, he's not great. I think he's like 1-3 in his UFC career at the moment. I think if Buren loses, I think it'll be the end of the road for him. Vera, like you say, losses against John Lineker and Douglas Andrade, two tough fighters. He's got some good wins on his record though. Brian Kelleher, Brad Pickett. For this one, I'm going with Vera. I think he'll be a little more active. I like it. He's got strong kicks. I was watching some of his tape back, and I was forgetting he throws some nice kicks as well. He's very active on the ground as well. He can pull a win out of nowhere, really. I mean, that Brian Kelleher victory, he was just stuffed Kelleher takedown and wrapped up an arm and a little crazy scramble, and next thing you know, Kelleher's tapping for his life. Brad Pickett as well. I was at that fight, and Pickett was winning. He looked like he was going to cruise to a decision victory, and then third round, nice head kick, put him away. But yeah, I think Vera's going to have too much for him, both standing and on the ground. I think he's going to pick up the win.
Yeah, and the betting line suggests that. So for those that don't know, Marlon Vera is currently sitting at -500 with Buren at +400. So the lines are absolutely suggesting that.
Yeah,
To be honest,
definitely in his favour then.
yeah, definitely, and I agree with that as well. I think Marlon Vera will get the win, but I've got a funny feeling it might not be as simple as the lines, and well, the lines at least, and maybe the analysis of others maybe making out. I just think Buren in this fight, he's gonna apply a wrestling heavy game plan. So he'll be going for the takedowns. He did the same against
Yeah,
Rolando D. I think he landed 3 or 4 in that fight.
yeah.
And I imagine him to be doing the same against Marlon Vera because there's a huge mismatch on the feet. Now it's a big call, man, saying that one of these fighters might get the pink slip, the walking papers with a loss.
It's a big shout, isn't it? I
It
mean, I
is.
like Vera. Vera's very young as well.
Especially
He's
when you
very young.
consider if Vera is the one that's taken the L, because his last 2 losses were to Douglas Silva de Andrade. Now, I'm pretty sure that dude got an exemption as well from USADA in
I think
Brazil,
so. Yeah,
and he
yeah.
looked like an absolute
He's a little
machine
tank,
for
wasn't he?
3 full rounds. So you draw your own conclusions from that, but
Yeah.
yeah, he definitely looked very different. And then the loss before that was John Lineker, which
Going the distance with Lineker's some good going as well. He's
yeah,
got
and he took a lot of
heavy
bombs, and
hands.
he
Yeah, yeah.
also had the odd moment in the fight as well. So I think if Marlon Vera was to lose this, I think, I know that's 3 losses in a row, and this one won't look that great, but he might get another. Whereas Bjorn, yeah, I could maybe see that if he does take another loss here, like you mentioned, Rolando D. He's not the best opposition, and it was a very, very comfortable unanimous decision. But I agree with you. I think the fight's gonna stay on the feet. I think Vera's gonna use his kicks. He's gonna try and keep at distance, keep Bjorn on the end of everything that he throws. I think Bjorn will desperately be trying to get inside to get a hold of Vera, to get the hands locked and dump him on the mat. I think for maybe at least the first 2.5 minutes of this fight, I think Vera's going to have to do a lot of work defensively. But
Yeah.
I think once he's sort of overcome that and defended a few takedowns, or even getting taken down and standing straight back up, I think eventually it's going to wear on Bjorn, and that's when Vera will end up taking over. I think he's gonna beat him by decision though. A finish wouldn't totally be a shock. Maybe a submission if Bjorn gets tired on the mat, but or if even if it's a sloppy takedown and he locks on to a neck or something like that, maybe he does submit him. But I think Vera's going to take this one by decision.
Were you were you quite surprised to see this matchup announced? Because everything on Twitter suggested that we're going to see Marlon Vera against Nathaniel Wood. There's a lot of back and forth there.
Oh really? I know. I never saw that.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth there. Obviously Nathaniel Wood saying that he wanted to get redemption for Brad Pickett's loss. And
I did see something actually. Now you've mentioned
spoke to Nathaniel Wood the other day at Cage Warriors 95, and he was saying he's pretty much adamant that was the fight that he was going to have next, because they've been going back and forth and stuff, and Vera had been saying I'll sign the contract and all this, and Nathaniel Wood was as soon as I get the contract it'll be signed, I'll do it, I want to get redemption for Brad's loss and stuff.
Maybe
the next thing you know, out of nowhere.
Well, maybe the only reason why the UFC haven't matched that, the only thing I can think of is if
the losses, both, I think, coming in.
Yeah, I mean, if they were both agreeing to fight each other, the only thing I can think of is it being a little bit too short notice, because I know Wood was in a bit of a war with Johnny Eduardo not so long ago. So, yeah, I'd imagine. Well, I don't know. The medical suspension must not have been that long if he was saying that sort of stuff to you. But yeah, that's the only reason that I can think of if that's not.
I wonder if they were just thinking. I also wonder if the UFC were thinking, well, Vera's on a 2-fight losing streak. Nathaniel Wood's come in. He's quite hyped. Obviously, this side of the pond as well, because we all know about him from Cage Warriors.
Absolutely,
comes in a war in his first fight, like I say, with Johnny Eduardo, gets the win. I wonder if they're thinking bigger things for him, and they're just kind of thinking this matchup, although with the Brad Pickett influence and redeeming his loss, it doesn't really make sense from where they are in a fighting perspective at the moment. So
yeah, maybe it could be one of many things. We obviously we're only at the forefront of stuff. We've got no idea what's going on in the background. But I'm pretty sure Nathaniel Wood will definitely get another fun fight in his next fight in the UFC, because he is a prospect, and he is one to watch for the future for sure.
Definitely.
But moving on into our next fight, we've got in the women's division, we've got Danielle Taylor against Wiley Zhang. I think I've pronounced that right.
I think so.
we'll see in the women's strawweight division. So who have you got in this one? John, it's a lot of people have been watching tape on this Wiley Zhang. She's currently sitting at around -2. Well, she's just bumped up, so it's sort of -230, -240 now. So a huge favourite on a debut. So how do you see the fight going down?
It's a pretty tough one to pick this one with me, because I was trying to pick up on some tape of her and stuff, but it's hard to judge obviously when they're coming in making their debut in the UFC. Obviously we've seen some of Danielle Taylor before. She's got some good wins actually on her record. Jessica Penne obviously fought for the title. Siho Ham as well. But then she's got that most recently lost to JJ Aldrich, who's also on this card. She's got a loss a few fights ago against Mariana Moraes as well, who's good. She's always in around top 10 or so. But yeah, I think it's going to be the newcomer. I think she's going to get the win. She's confidence will be high, riding a 16-fight win streak. She she looked good from what I saw of her, but like you say, it's hard to kind of judge it on some of the tape you see because you don't really know what the level of competition's like in comparison to
Sure.
UFC caliber. But yeah, I fancy her. She's got that height advantage. I think she's got the reach advantage as well. So I think she'll try and keep her at distance. And yeah, I can just see her. I think it'll go the full 3 rounds. But I think the newcomer will get the win.
Yeah, see, I agree with you for a lot of your points. I'm not sure that she'll try and keep distance. Again, from what I've saw of her, this girl looks super aggressive. Listen, for anybody that's listening to this podcast and you've not seen anything of Weili Zhang, just go and watch some tape. It's all over YouTube. You can find tape, no problem. She looks really, really exciting. As a record suggests, 16-1, like
16-1, yeah.
Like you've just mentioned, 16-fight win streak with her dropping that first loss in her debut, and yeah, she looks exciting. She looks aggressive. She doesn't give her opponents any chance to breathe. Now, I think it's interesting in this fight because Danielle Taylor does normally tend to fight sort of moving backwards at times. She can't do it too much because of her size. She's only 5 foot, so she does normally fight opponents that are sort of 4 or 5 inches taller than her. So she does have to sort of balance the defensive to the offensive, especially when striking, because ultimately she needs to get inside to win fights due to her size. So she is going to have to come forward in stages against Zhang, but I don't think Zhang will move backwards. I think she'll meet her right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
And yeah, I think she'll unload. Interestingly, I actually looked at the line on this for the fight doesn't go the distance because, I mean, if you look at her record, she's 16 wins, 9 knockouts, 6 submissions. She's gone to the decision twice in 17 fights. So, you know, all stats point to a potential finish, but it is a UFC debut. It is a first time on the world's biggest stage in MMA. So you've got to take these sort of things into consideration. And it was only, I think, yesterday she was sort of like minus 230, minus 240, and it's quite a bad line for a UFC debutant, especially coming in against somebody that has got 4 wins in the UFC, that has been on the world's biggest stage, a fighter that is probably likely to be on a bicycle from the get-go as soon as this fight starts. I think if she does that, it'll be for 1 or 2 reasons. Danielle Taylor will be hoping that Zhang gasses, or she will just try and just stay out of the way of anything and just pick her spots to move forward. So ultimately, I think Zhang's going to win. Do you know what? I'm going to take her by finish. I think she'll get the fight to the mat at some point in this fight. She passes to Mount very, very comfortably, and I can see her unloading some ground and pound and getting the ref to jump in and save Danielle Taylor. So I've got Weili Zhang to win via TKO. I'm moving straight into the next fight. And this is my hot take for a potential fight of the night. We've got Ricardo Ramos against Kang. So, John, who have you got?
This fight, like you say, this could be one hell of an exciting fight. Both of them are on a 3-fight win streak. Both of them picked up superb finishes in their last fight. I mean, I was lucky enough to be at UFC 217 to see that beautiful spinning back elbow by Ricardo Ramos against Zahabi. That was a bit of an indifferent fight. I mean, the first round, Ramos came straight out the gate, hit Zahabi with some heavy shots, took him down, took his back off, seemed to recall, at the end of the round as well. And then Zahabi seemed to come back into it in the second round, picking him apart with the jab a little bit, but then third round he teased that spinning back elbow a few times, and then when he landed, I mean, Zahabi was out cold for about 10 minutes from what I can remember, and there was just a stunned silence around Madison Square Garden. Kang as well, fantastic finish, completely the opposite kind of finish, but a superb finish against Guido Canetti in his last fight, picked up the triangle. It was a beautiful slick transition as well from what I can remember.
From Mount.
I think, from Mount, wasn't it? Yeah, and then he kind of slipped in that triangle, rolled him, and then he tried to fight his way out, but no chance. Interesting to see they're both fight before last. They've both defeated Tanaka as well, which was
Both great fights as
yeah,
well. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
again,
Both very
if you're
good
listening to
fights.
this right now and you've not seen any of those fights, go back and watch both of those guys against Tanaka. Tanaka just seems to bring out the best of these two for sure.
They certainly do. They're both extremely good fights. So both went the distance. So yeah, so they've got an opponent in common, and even that doesn't really help us decide who's going to win this one. I'm going Ricardo Ramos. Just a 50-50 toss of a coin. I just think he'll be able to edge it out. I think he'll be a bit more active. Seem to remember the last couple of fights, his output was very high. A lot of flashy techniques as well. If he catches Kang with one of them, it could do some damage. Kang did get rocked a couple of times against Canetti, if I remember rightly, prior to him picking up that locking in that triangle. So yeah, I'm going with Ramos. But like you say, it's got potential fight of the night written all over it. This one has.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I think we do see some scrambles because that's where both of these guys are so exciting to watch. And when I said that to go back and watch both fights against Tanaka, it's because of the crazy scrambles as soon as Tanaka engages, trying to take these guys down. They both just, I don't know. It's like the fight just goes in fast forward and the scrambles just start flying everywhere. Now this is where I sit on this fight. Weirdly, both these guys are pretty much identical in regards to everything, like
Yeah.
style, physique,
Height,
height, reach, just completely everything. And the reason why that's so strange is because both guys are so unique. So they've both got a unique style that I don't, off the top of my head, I don't really see in any other fighter in that I know of in mixed martial arts. But
No.
it's weird that that style I don't see anywhere else apart from two guys that share the same style. So they're both really unique, but they're both very similar. It's really good matchmaking. This, I think that when it comes to the ground game and the scrambles, I sort of think this fight is going to be a bit nullified because I don't see any one of them having an advantage. So let's say
No.
Ricardo Ramos gets a takedown on Kang. I think Kang could scramble out of it. I think Kang could use his defensive game to stand back up or throw a submission to maybe try and sweep and then stand. And I also think the same from Ramos as well. On the flip side, if Kang takes Ramos down, I think Ramos can scramble. He's also got good takedown defense as well. Ricardo Ramos, that's something to mention. So
Yeah.
he will be tough to take down, but if he does get taken down, he'll scramble or he'll throw up submissions, try and sweep, or he'll stand back up. So I actually think the ground game is going to be quite nullified in this, and I'm not sure how much we see of the ground game after one or two scrambles. I think they'll both just realise that it's sort of a stalemate down there on
Yeah.
the mat. So then in my head, it comes to the stand up, and I honestly think that Ramos has got the better stand up. I think he's got a good jab, he's got good kicks, he's got his spinning techniques. I'm not sure how much he uses those sort of techniques in this fight because I feel that the second that he turns his back against Kang could quickly wrap up a body lock and
Yeah.
try and take him down and get some top time. So I'm not sure how much we see of that. And yeah, I just think the straight right's good for Ramos as well. I think his movement's good, and the reason why I think Ramos will have a lot of success on the feet is you look back at Kang's last fight against Canetti. I know he was coming off a 4-year layoff, so rust could
Yeah.
have been a problem there. But listen, Canetti's not a striker, and Canetti was also smaller than Kang in height and reach, I believe, as well. So
Yeah.
he was tagging him up. He was having a lot of success, and I just feel that if that was
Yeah.
Ramos in that
Knocked him
spot.
down, I think, or definitely rocked him a couple of times. From what I can
Yeah, he
remember.
did, and yeah, I just think I think if the fighter stays on the feet, which might be the case, I think Ramos will start to have a lot of success, and if he does, I think we'll start seeing some takedowns coming in from Kang. But I think Ramos's takedown defense is good enough to keep him vertical. And then the last thing to mention about Ramos as well, I'm not sure if it's been mentioned too much on MMA Twitter, but Ramos has actually been with Team Alpha Male for this fight for his first camp.
Okay, I
And I
wasn't
know,
aware of that.
yeah, he's been training with Feely, Garbrandt,
Yeah.
all those guys at Alpha Male. There's so many of them to mention. But
Yeah.
I seem to remember that fighters have a lot of success at least in the first fight with Team Alpha Male. So, they've been at whatever gym, they've moved over to Alpha Male, and then they've gone into the first fight and looked great and looked massively improved. With Ramos at 22, I think we can expect vast improvements from fight to fight, whereas Kang, who was at 30, maybe not so much. So, yeah, I think Ramos is going to win. I actually think he's going to stop Kang. I think he's going to drop him at some point, maybe in the second or third round, and then just subsequently finish him via TKO. So, I've got Ricardo Ramos via TKO. Then in the next fight, we've got Jose Shorty Torres against Alex Perez. And again, this is going to be another really fun fight. I'm really looking forward to it. Who have you got, John?
Again, you've took the words out of my mouth. Another exciting fight coming up. Shorty Torres, I mean, there was a lot of hype when he came in for his UFC debut. He got the win over Jared Brooks, but let's be honest, it was a little bit lucky because Brooks was getting the better of the fight, I thought, and then he went for that huge slam and kind of knocked himself out.
The genius slam.
Yeah, the genius slam, yeah.
It's funny, actually, just to cut you in, because in a post-fight interview, Jared Brooks was quoted saying, "If I didn't knock myself out, I would have beaten you," and that's just brilliant. Like you'll never hear those words come out of a fighter's mouth again.
What I like, what made me laugh was reading up on their records and stuff. Not before we got started on this, and the method of victory is ground and pound after botched slam. That's the actual wording on Tapology. Ground and pound after botched slam. I was like, that's brilliant.
Polite way of putting it.
But yeah, so from what I saw in his Titan stuff, he was an animal. He was a beast and stuff. But like I say, he was getting lit up by Brooks a bit. He was getting dominated. Brooks, I think, took him down a few times and then went for that big slam, as we know, and the rest was history. Perez, I really like this guy. He's got some nasty chokes. And what I do like about him, he's very clever, I think is probably the best word to say, with his MMA grappling, because he's constantly, especially in the Cole's John Thomas fight, he was constantly looking for those submissions. As soon as he sees that it's not there, he'll advance position or he'll land some ground and pound, and straight away then, as soon as he sees another opportunity, he jumps in there to try and get that finish. And he's always looking for finishes. He's not one of these guys that just takes you down, holds you down, and tries to wear you through the 3 rounds. He's constantly looking for those finishes. I'm going with Perez on this one. I think he'll take it to the ground. I think he'll lock on a submission, and I think he'll finish Torres. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going the other way. I'm going Jose Torres, and I'm actually a little bit surprised by the line here. I don't think it's totally off. Jose Torres is currently sitting at about plus 120. I didn't expect him to be an underdog here. I think a fair line probably would have been a pick'em. But yeah, I think Jose Torres is going to win. And at first I was back and forth with this fight. I wasn't sure, but the more that I broke it down, the more that I do see Torres having a lot of success in this fight. Now, the one thing he does really have to defend and really work on in this fight is his takedown defense, because those takedowns are going to come from Alex Perez. But the one thing that I don't think is documented very well on Jose Torres is he has got a background in in wrestling at a junior level, and so he does have that wrestling background. And I think in this fight it'll be enough to keep him vertical. I think he might get taken down a couple of times at first, but I don't think he's an easy guy to take down, and he's also got a decent get-up game as well. We saw that in a couple of his Titan fights. And then on the feet, his Muay Thai is really good. His pace is really good. His speed's really good. His shot selection's really good. I think on the feet is going to be a bit of a mismatch. I think Perez is going to stand with him for maybe about a minute until he realizes that himself, and then I think we'll start to see the takedowns start rolling in. But if Perez starts missing on a few of his shots, and when I say missing, I actually mean failing. If he starts failing on his takedowns on a couple of them, it's going to affect him mentally. And I think he'll he'll then it'll start to show in his game, and I think we'll then start to see Torres put some pressure on him. I don't think Torres is going to finish him. It's definitely a possibility. If he does finish him, I see him maybe rocking him towards putting Alex Perez on the back foot against the cage, rocking him with some shots, maybe getting into the tie clinch, plum clinch, however you want to call it, and start unloading some knees on him.
Yeah.
I think that's a potential path to victory if he does end up finishing him. But ultimately, I am going to go a win by decision. I think that Perez is tough. I think he will hold in there, and I do think that even though Torres will be winning the fight, I think every time that pressure gets too much and a finish might look likely, I think we see Perez just level change and just shoot in just to relieve that pressure, if nothing else. So yeah, I've got Jose Torres to win, and I've got him to win via a decision. And then in the next fight, this is the fight that I've actually got my free bet on. So the out of all the bets that I place on every card, I do give one away free. I give a free written breakdown on my website, and also I'll break that down in much more detail on this podcast as well. So we've got Matt Sayles versus Sheymon Moraes in what looks to be, again, a really good fight. So who have you got, John?
Again, like you say, this is another potentially very exciting fight. Another very hard fight to pick between as well. I think this whole card really, and I was looking through it, and I was going through all the matchups and things, and
it's worth mentioning, with it being a betting podcast, it is worth mentioning that this card, in my opinion, is the hardest to bet on in 2018. I thought it from off the top of my head, and I actually went back and had a look at every single event that I've bet this year, and even though I've had some losing events, obviously earlier on this year, man, this is so tough. It is a very, very tough card to bet. So
that's exactly what I was thinking when I was looking through. I was like, these guys are literally from top to bottom. It's so evenly matched. It's a tough one. This is another tough one that I was racking my brains about, because Sayles came through from obviously Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. He looked very good in his fight against Hadjer. He was throwing some bombs in that fight as well. I remember he caught his bone with 2 or 3 bombs, and then I think he was Bisping commentating at the time saying it's only a matter of time for one of these puts him down, and he was very much correct. He put him down and finished him with the ground pound. He looked very composed in that fight as well. Someone 24 years old, going in there trying to put on a show, get a contract in the UFC. I remember looking and thinking, this guy looks so calm and chilled out. It's like he'd been there for about 10 years. Moraes, on the other hand, it's pretty hard to judge on his debut fight, because he got thrown in there against Zabit Magomed-Sharipov. So how do you judge on that? I mean, the only other loss on his record is to Marlon Moraes, who's very, very top level as well. So it's quite a difficult one to pick. Moraes has got some good wins on his record as well. Some well-known guys. Palomino, Robbie Peralta. He's got some decent wins. I do think though, just because of how calm and composed, I remember seeing Sayles in his Tuesday Night Contender Series. He's got those heavy hands as well. Moraes got caught a few times by, like I say, that was against Magomed-Sharipov, but I think Sayles is going to win this one.
Cool. Well, I'm the opposite way, and the bet is 1.5 units on Sheymon Moraes at plus 110. Now, as you've just heard correctly, it was plus 110. It was the underdog plus money. Really surprised about that. It wasn't a fight that I was actually going to tape at all until I saw the line, and I just, for some reason, I assumed that Moraes would be sort of like the minus 150, maybe minus 160, potentially even minus 175 range. But then when I saw he was plus money, I was like, okay, well, somebody knows something about this Matt Sayles that I don't. So I had to run the tape back and watch it. And to be honest with you, I was still left a bit puzzled afterwards, after I watched the tape on both of them, which ultimately led me to the bet. Now, what I will say about Matt Sayles is he's always on his toes. He's got good movement. He's quick. and he's got good lateral movement as well, so he doesn't tend to put himself in too much danger by walking his opponents down in straight lines. He does angle out and things like that, so his movement's good, and I do like that about him. But
Yeah.
the issue that I have with Matt Sayles, and it wasn't just one fight I watched or two fights. I watched a few fights on him. Now, this right hand that he hits everybody with, it's not set up by anything. He just throws the
Yeah, he
right
does throw
hand.
it naked quite a lot, doesn't he? Yeah,
Yeah,
just
it's not set up at all. Now, on the flip side with Sheymon Moraes, because as soon as I noticed this, I watched Matt Sayles before I watched Moraes because I'd already watched tape on Moraes previously. I knew a lot about the guy, so I just wanted to see what Matt Sayles was about first. And as soon as I saw that right hand just be thrown time and time again on its own, not set up with leg kicks, not mixed in combinations, not set up with a jab or a double jab or anything like that, I thought, well, this is really interesting because Sheymon Moraes is no slouch. He's a very, very good striker. So then I flipped back and I went over to Sheymon Moraes and I watched his fights. I watched his loss to Marlon Moraes, which by the way was like a super fight for the World Series of Fighting at the
yeah,
time
yeah,
that happened. Those two were the top guys. And what I noticed with Moraes and his defensive stand-up game is he tends to get hit with the one a lot. So that'll be the jab or a lead hook. He tends to
yeah,
get hit with that quite a lot, but he always sees the two. So he always sees the straight rights or a big right hook coming after the one. Now
yeah,
because Sayles doesn't throw the one, he's just throwing the two. He's coming from slightly further away. I feel that Moraes is going to see that if Sayles isn't setting it up. Now, if Sayles comes into this fight and he actually starts mixing it up and he does start throwing his jab out there and he does start setting this right hand up, I do think Moraes is going to get knocked out. But I just I can't create a scenario that I haven't seen in tape. So I'm happy to take a 1.5 unit shot on a completely offline, in my opinion, on an underdog that I feel that should definitely be the favourite. Um, Now, I have heard a few people mentioning that Sayles has got good wrestling and they might take Moraes down, but we have seen Moraes being taken down. He gets back up to his feet really quickly.
yeah.
He's also not bad on the ground either. He trains at Team Naguera or Black House. I'm not sure which one it's called. He's been tagging it as Black House on Instagram, but it's definitely Team Naguera from Topology and other sources. So I don't know. It's irrelevant anyway. But it's all the same guys that he trains with. But that gym's really good and it's actually really rising as well. They're starting to get a lot of wins through the fighters in that gym. So he's definitely coming from a great background if Sayles decides to start taking him down because
Yeah.
he's gonna be well versed on the mat. And you know what? He didn't actually do too bad against Zabit. Let's be honest. He
No, he
had Zabit.
defended well. He
Yeah, he had
defended
Zabit
well.
in some bad spots as well. So I'm just like I say, I just feel that Sayles' path to victory is the knockout. I think that his biggest strength is his striking, and I feel that his biggest weapon is this straight right. And he just, like I say, he just doesn't set it up. I think Moraes is definitely going to have seen what I mean. If I've seen that, Moraes is going to have seen that when he's taped him because all the top guys nowadays tend to tape their opponents, or the
Yeah,
coaches do. So I just think that Moraes is going to see this coming. And then when you look at Moraes' striking arsenal, he's got good kicks up and down the body.
yeah,
He's got power in both hands. If he sees an opportunity inside the pocket, he'll brawl for a short amount of time. And I don't mean like go absolutely nuts for like a minute and completely gas himself out, but he'll throw 3 or 4 big shots quickly in quick succession just to try and find that chin. He's got that power and he's got 5 wins on by knockout on his record anyway. So I think that a TKO is definitely possible for Sheymon Moraes, but then I think he could point him anyway. Even if Sayles is coming forward aggressively, I think Moraes can fight well moving backwards. We saw that in parts against Marlon Moraes. He didn't get totally destroyed in that fight. We saw that against Luis Palomino as well. He was fighting well moving backwards in phases. So I just think Moraes is unless Sayles is setting this right hand up, I think he could knock him out. Or if he turns into Colby Covington, relentless wrestler, I think it could get hairy on a decision. But ultimately, from what I've seen on tape, I think Moraes could comfortably win this fight. And I don't mean any disrespect to Sayles. I just think that his biggest weapon is one that Moraes will see coming if it's not set up right. So that's my take on the fight. I feel like I've got a good read on it as well. The reason I didn't put more on it, the reason I didn't bet more than 1.5 unit, two reasons. One, the betting strategy that I've got going on for this card. I've sort of covered Moraes's stake within the potential winnings of my other bet. So I've only got 2 bets this card. So I've sort of covered it a little bit, because if Sayles does land that right hand, it can knock anybody out. He does have power, and that is a slight worry. But yeah, I've got Sheymon Moraes, and I think he's going to stop Sayles. I think if Sayles' durability takes a hit, or his gas tank takes a hit with what goes on in the fight, I think Moraes will stop him late. I think if it doesn't, then Moraes can win a decision. But ultimately, I think Moraes is going to break him down and finish him in the 3rd round. And then the next fight, we've got Ricky Simón against Montel Jackson. Obviously, this fight's short notice. Montel Jackson stepping in. So who have you got, John?
With this one, I haven't actually seen much tape on Montel Jackson, so it's I've only really seen the stuff they did on Dana White's Contender Series. Ricky Simón got that very strange finish in his last fight against Dvalishvili, that where he choked him out, went the distance, but he still got given the.
It was all weird that, because he'd lost that fight as well,
Yeah, it was super weird, because he was getting. Dvalishvili was all over him, going for the takedowns. He did work his way back to his feet a few times, but I mean he was getting. He was getting worked a bit in that fight. So purely and simply because I've seen more tape on him, I'm going with Simón. But I'm sure you've probably looked into Jackson a bit more. You could probably tell us a bit more about his style and things. But yeah, I don't really feel that I can give a very accurate reflection on this fight because of the lack of tape and stuff I've seen for Jackson.
Yeah, and I did tape this. I did tape this fight as well. And do you know what? I'm going to throw out the unpopular opinion here, and I actually think the short notice guy in Montel Jackson takes the win here. And man, the reason I'm saying it is because you look back at the Simón and Dvalishvili fight, and yes, Simon's good. He applies pressure. He's got good takedowns. He's got good wrestling. From that takedown and wrestling, though, his grappling isn't the best. A lot of fighters tend to stand back up quite quickly. It's sort of a little like Cody Stamen in a way. So he'll dump a guy 10 times in a fight, no problem. But it's keeping the fighters on the mat. But then, like I say, there's always there's a difference between wrestling and grappling. Now, on the feet, I think that again, Simon's wild. He's fun to watch, but he leaves himself so open to get hit. And you saw Dvalishvili hurt him a few times in that fight.
Yeah.
And Dvalishvili isn't a striker by trade. He's a grappler. He's a wrestler. And he definitely dropped him at least once by memory. It could have potentially been more than that, but he had him rocked a couple of times over the course of the 3 rounds. To me, Simón just leaves his chin open to be hit way too much. Now, can Montel Jackson capitalise on that? He could do. It's definitely a possibility. He hits hard himself. He's not a bad striker. It's how reactive he's going to be, though. So when Simon's coming forward, winging these shots at him, it's how he counters that, and does he sort of stiffen up a bit with the pressure, or is he calm, relaxed, and finds his angles to then find Simon's chin? That's obviously yet to be seen. But the wrestling side of it doesn't really concern me too much, because Montel Jackson's got wrestling himself as well. We saw that in his fight with Rico Disculio in Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. Couple of nice takedowns. I think he can definitely use his wrestling to stay vertical here, and if he does get taken down, the chances are he might get straight back up to his feet anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I think that I think that Jackson, if he can keep it vertical and often, so if he can defend these takedowns, I think there's definitely an opportunity for him to knock Simone down, or potentially even knock him out and finish him, unless Simone fights more reserved. If Simone comes out there and he doesn't wing bombs, and he does pick his shots, and still applies pressure in the right way, he can cruise this fight definitely. But then the last thing to mention as well is the height and reach disadvantage that Ricky Simone's got. It is significant. He is going to have to work to get inside, which does lead me to believe that he will be as aggressive as he was in his last fight, and he will come in swinging bombs to close that distance, because bombs are a great way to close a distance. The problem that Simone's got is he just leaves his chin wide open. I think he is going to get dropped a couple of times. I think he might lose a close decision. I don't think Jackson knocks him out, but I do think he does hurt him and puts him in a little bit of trouble throughout the fight. So, yeah, I've got the unpopular opinion, I think, is Montel Jackson to win by decision. Then in the next fight, we've got Pedro Munhoz against Brett Johns. This is a stylistic nightmare for one guy, in my opinion. But let's hear it from you first, John. Who have you got?
I like this fight. I'm looking forward to seeing Brett Johns back in action. Obviously, he's on a nice little run up until the Aljamain Sterling fight. Munoz, I also like. I mean, when you look at the losses on his record, John Dodson, Jimmy Rivera, Rafael Assunção, all decision losses. The Dodson and the Rivera fight both split decisions as well. I mean, he's fighting top guys there. He's got good wins on his record. Rob Font, Damien Stasiak, Scoggins, Russell Doan. I mean, he's dangerous with the guillotine as well. A lot of people know that he's going to go for that guillotine, but they still can't stop it. And I genuinely think this fight as well, I reckon he catches Johns in the guillotine. I reckon he wins it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a stylistic nightmare for Brett Johns.
Yeah.
I think he's really been put in a shark tank in this fight, because we all know obviously Brett Johns his path to victory is his wrestling, his takedowns.
Of course, yeah.
Every single time he shoots at Munhoz, he runs the risk of that guillotine. Now, even if he tucks his chin well, or doesn't leave it out there and goes for trip takedowns maybe, even when he's on top, Pedro Munhoz could still find that guillotine. He could still quickly wrap it up. The guillotine's a genius, and if you've never seen any of his guillotines, go and watch them. They're so different to everybody else's, and the reason being is he ties both arms up so you physically cannot tap. You can't use your hands to tap because you're all wrapped up. So a lot of his guillotines have come by verbal submission, because like I said, they can't tap. They're nasty. They're so nasty. They're so quick, but they're so perfected as well. It's actually beautiful to see, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, every single time Johns goes in for a takedown, or however long he's on the mat, he's going to be running the risk of that guillotine. Then you think, okay, well, if he knows this and he's trying to stand with Munhoz, I think that from a striking, how good they are, how good they both are technically with the striking, I think they're on par. I think they're quite similar, but the reason I give Munhoz the edge on the feet is speed and movement. I think he can be in and out with shots before Brett Johns is even aware what's happened. So this is what I mean. This is where I don't know how Brett Johns wins the fight, unless his wrestling is that good that he can nullify Pedro Munhoz's submission game and that guillotine. But ultimately, I agree with you. I think at some point he is going to shoot, because that's his bread and butter. Brett Johns is also going to believe that his wrestling is good enough to nullify the jiu-jitsu of Munhoz, and I think he's going to get caught in the guillotine. I think he's going to get tapped out. So my prediction is Pedro Munhoz to win by submission.
Yep.
Then in the first fight of our main card, we've got, again, another stylistic nightmare in my opinion. We've got Cub Swanson versus Renato Moicano. Who have you got, John?
I like Moicano for this one. I mean, if you, again, looking at his record, he's got some great wins. He looked good against Calvin Kattar in his last fight. His only losses to T-City, Brian Ortega. Swanson, I always think with Swanson, is he on the decline? Is now the time that he's on his decline? He'll have a couple of back-to-back losses, and then he'll come back. And I mean, those fights against Do Ho Choi, and even the fight against Artem Lobov. I mean, you'd expect him to beat Lobov. No offense to Lobov, but it's his record kind of speaks for itself. But that Do Ho Choi fight was absolutely crazy. But I think Moicano is the guy coming through in this division. I think he's going to be fighting for a title very soon. I think he gets the win. I was very surprised when I was looking through Swanson's record actually that he hasn't got a finish. I kind of in my head I always think he's quite a solid finisher. He's got good striking, good crisp striking. He's good on the ground as well. He's got good jiu-jitsu, sneaky jiu-jitsu, but he hasn't actually got a finish on his record since like 2013 or something crazy like that. Yeah, he was, about Dennis Seaver, yeah. But yeah, I think Moicano's going to pick up another win, move a step closer to to that title shot. I think he'll go the distance because Swanson's durable, as we saw in the Frankie Edgar fight. He does leave his neck exposed, though. He's been known to leave his neck out there a little bit. Ortega, obviously, we saw that he just went and fetched his neck. Swanson didn't even have his neck open, just Ortega went and fetched it. But he lost to Holloway via guillotine as well. Frankie Edgar in the first fight, he lost right at the very end of the last round, if I remember rightly, with about 2 seconds to go or something like that. So I think there's potential for a stoppage win for Moicano as well, but ultimately I'm going with Moicano for the win.
Yeah, and earlier on when I said I would be stunned with Aldana if she lost to Betchgohea, I would be equally as stunned if Cub Swanson beat Moicano. Moicano's so good. So good, and I actually lost money on him in his last fight. I didn't have a lot on it, but I did bet Calvin Qatar in that fight, and man, Calvin Qatar is so good. Again, it was a horrible fight to match up at the time they had done, because they were both prospects, they were both rising, they both had momentum. The UFC could have easily given both of them different guys and made them meet in the middle further down the line. But man, I'm telling you now, Calvin Qatar is one of the best in that division without a shadow of a doubt, and Moicano absolutely schooled him. He kept distance, a similar game plan to actually what he did with Jeremy Stephens, except Calvin Qatar ended up wilting under that pressure late on, which allowed Moicano to come forward and really flourish in there, whereas Jeremy Stephens didn't wilt and Moicano still had to keep on the back foot for 3 rounds. So I think that I'm not sure. The thing is, Cub Swanson's got a path to victory here of a puncher's chance, and it's a legit one as well because he packs power. I know he hasn't had a knockout since 2013, but he can still definitely knock anybody out if he catches them. And I think that's his path to victory. But aside from that, I don't see it, because if he takes Moicano down, one, he's tough to take. Well, you've got to get a hold of Moicano first anyway. Then you've got to take him down, and then you've got to work him on the mat. But Moicano's got good jiu-jitsu. He'll be good off his back, and he'll use it to stand back up. Then on the feet, he'll be throwing the jab. He'll be throwing the leg kicks. He'll be throwing knees to the midsection as Cub Swanson's coming forward. Cub Swanson, if he leaves an opening with his striking, Moicano will find it. Calvin Kattar, in my opinion, is 2 or 3 times better than Cub Swanson, and I just think that if Moicano schooled Kattar in the way that he did, I don't think he's going to have any issue with Swanson. And I don't mean any disrespect to Swanson. He's had an illustrious career. He's a veteran. He's given us some of the best fights that we've ever seen in mixed martial arts.
Definitely.
But sadly, this sport's unforgiving, and when it's your time to head downwards, it's your time to head downwards, and I think that's what we're seeing with Cub Swanson. Ultimately, I think that the last 3 opponents of Renato Moicano are all better than Cub Swanson. So in a way, it's actually, I think it's a little bit of a step down for the direction that Moicano's heading. But I think what's happened is these two are just meeting at different points of the career. So as Moicano's coming up, Swanson's coming down, and they're naturally just meeting each other. So I don't hate the matchup or anything like that, but I also don't think Moicano stops him either. Swanson's tough as shit.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't think he submits him. I don't see a submission, so it would be a TKO or a KO if Moicano did stop him, but I don't see it. So I'm going Renato Moicano to win a very, very dominant decision. And then in the next fight...
Are we, just to interrupt you there, are we saying future champion Moicano? Are we,
potentially. The problem you've got in this division is you've got, at least right now, Max Holloway, Brian Ortega. We don't know obviously what's happening with Holloway. I could actually see both of them guys moving up anyway because they're both huge for the division.
Yeah, big guys, yeah.
We've also got Zabit, Magomed Sharipov in there as well. We've got Calvin Kattar. I know that Moicano's just schooled him, but they could run that back so many times and we could have different results.
Yeah.
So there's a few guys in there. I think I can safely say top three. I can see Moicano in there. Not yet. Give him a few more fights, but I think he'll be there.
Yeah.
There or thereabouts, anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah. Then in the next fight, we've got Polyana Viana against JJ Aldrich. So again, a bit of a strange fight. But who have you got in this one, John?
Yeah, this fight. I wanted to ask you about this actually because I've seen a lot of grumblings around on social media asking why this is on the main card, which I feel is a bit harsh to both fighters. But I just wanted to get your take on it before we started discussing the fight. Do you think this is pay-per-view? Because obviously us over in the UK, we just watch it all. We don't pay for the pay-per-views. We've got it on BT Sports for the time being, etc. Over these are mainly American guys that I'm seeing commenting on it, saying, "Oh, there's other fights on the undercard I'd much rather see on the pay-per-view section."
Well, let me fire this back at you, right? So you're in America, you're paying $60 for this pay-per-view, and you get Polyana Viana and JJ Aldrich for your $60 as part of one of 5 fights. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts are no disrespect intended to any of them, but there are definitely, I think, more exciting fights on the undercard or other fights that could be made that could be my $60. I'd rather it went on.
I totally agree. You've got Pedro Munhoz and Brett Johns. You've got
that's number one. Yeah.
You've got Matt Sayles and Sheymon Moraes. You've got Jose Torres and Alex Perez. You've got Ricardo Ramos and Kyung Kang. Any of those.
It seems so strange that they've gone with it. Out of all those fights that you've named, they decided to go with this fight.
I don't want to disrespect either fighter. I'm glad that they're both going to be getting paid potentially a little bit more for the pay-per-view. And I'm happy for them that they're on the card, but ultimately it is a bit strange, but it is what it is. So who have you got winning the fight then?
Back to the fight, yeah. Two young women in the strawweight division. I really like the look of Polyana Viana. From what I've seen of her, she's got some really good jiu-jitsu. I think I've read somewhere she's won about like 15 titles back in Brazil, jiu-jitsu titles and things. She's on a 6-fight win streak. Picked up a good finish in the last fight against Maya Kahunela. I think I've pronounced that correctly. My pronunciations are terrible
usually.
Just
call her Maya Stevenson.
Yeah, Maya Kahunela Stevenson. Yeah, she's got a lot of finishes as well. So I think all her last 6 fights have all been won by finish. Sometimes you don't see that very often in the amongst the females. They're all quite durable. They all seem to, well, not all, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of them seem to go the distance. Aldrich, she's a good youngster. Fighting out of Denver, Colorado, so I always look out for people who fight out of Denver, Colorado, because that altitude, I always think they train at that higher altitude. They've always got a good gas tank. She beat Danielle Taylor, who's also on this card in her last fight, but ultimately I think Viana takes her down. I do think she'll get a submission victory as well. I think she'll work her jiu-jitsu, work that grappling. I think she will finish. I think it'll be late on though. I think it'll be late second, third round, but I think she'll finish her.
See, I'm heading the opposite way, and I actually think there's some value on JJ Aldrich as well because she's a big underdog in this fight. So she's sitting at around the plus 225. mark, and I think I think there's a value on that line for sure. Now it is a striker versus grappler matchup. There's no two ways about it, and Polyana needs to get JJ Aldrich down to beat
Yeah.
her. I think if she doesn't get her down, she'll get outpointed on the feet. She could potentially get finished on the feet. Not that I do see it, but when you're looking at path to victories, these are the sort of things you have to consider. I only see Polyana winning this fight if she gets her down. Now, she's got to set those takedowns up right. They've got to be right, and if they're not, then Aldrich can keep this fight vertical. And then when
Yeah.
it's on the feet, it's just as much of a mismatch on the feet as it is on the ground. Obviously, for opposite ways round. So yeah, I'm not totally convinced that Polyana can get takedowns as and when she likes. If she does, and she does start working on top, she's heavy on top. She'll probably submit JJ Aldrich. In fact, I'm pretty confident about that. If she gets her on the mat and she has sort of maybe 2 minutes to work, or even more in that particular round, wherever she gets the takedowns. But yeah, I'm edging towards JJ Aldrich. I think that she might be able to keep the fight vertical. She might be able to keep distance. I think that once Polyana starts maybe struggling with the range, well maybe not the range, but the fact that she's having to press forward and Aldrich is on the back foot. I think that if she starts getting frustrated, I think the takedowns will start being shot from further out.
Yeah.
So Aldrich will start to see him coming a little bit more. A little bit earlier, therefore giving her more chance to react and defend those takedowns. And I think the longer the fight goes on with Polyana not being able to get the takedowns, I think again, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast with Bjorn, I think she'll eventually mentally start to break down, and then Aldrich can really work a box in and just outpoint her to a decision. So I'm going to be going with JJ Aldrich. I think she earns a very hard-earned decision victory because she will have to defend those takedowns. A
Yeah.
takedown defense will have to be on point. So yeah, the prediction's Aldrich by decision. Then in the next fight, a fight that just sprung out of absolutely nowhere,
Yeah.
was Thiago Maheta Santos against Kevin Holland. So yeah, all kinds of weird stuff revolving this fight appearing out of nowhere. So who have you got, John?
Yeah, definitely was. Like you say, just kind of out of the blue, this fight got announced. I love Santos, so sometimes the heart rules the head, and I'm going to say Santos because of that reason. I do like his striking. I mean, obviously we saw him get knocked out, got caught by Branch, who's not particularly known as a big knockout artist. He's more of a take you down, smother you kind of guy. But prior to that, I mean, he had that beautiful body kick against Smith that put him out, put away Hermanson, that wheel kick against Jack Marshman as well. Ultimately, I think that Santos' striking is just going to be a little too much for Holland, and I think he's going to get the victory. He could get caught. I mean, Santos does leave himself exposed to getting punched as well, getting caught. But ultimately, I'm going with Santos on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pretty much every point as well. Santos could get caught. Holland's got 11 wins by finish out of his 12 wins,
Yeah,
so 6 of those coming by knockout. Holland could find Santos's chin, and you know what? Even though I'm picking Santos, if this fight was a full camp for both guys, and they may well have both been in camp. I think I'm more confident in Santos, the fact that he was in a camp because he was potentially being lined up to replace Brad Tavares against Adesanya when
yes,
there was rumours of
yeah,
Tavares pulling out. So that sort of tells me that Santos was training for that, to be that replacement. Not sure about Holland, but he could have been in camp for another fight. We don't know. I think on a definite full camp for both guys, knowing who they were going to fight, I think I would be picking Holland based on
yeah,
that. However, based on it being short notice, I think both guys are going to come out fast and hard, and I just think Santos is going to find that knockout blow with a head kick.
yeah,
Go low to start with a few leg kicks, maybe even mix some into the body as well. Get Holland thinking about the shots coming below his neck and then bang the head kick up top to put his lights out. I'm not saying it's definitely going to be a head kick. I just think that the aggression of Thiago Santos on a short notice fight for both guys is definitely going to favour him and put Holland at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think Santos is going to win by knockout. If it was a full camp for both guys, that had, full 8 to 12 week camp, who they knew they were fighting for the entire camp, I would be probably edging a bit more towards Holland. But this short notice fight definitely favours the aggression of Santos, in my opinion. So Santos to win by knockout is the prediction. Then in the co-main event of the evening, we've got Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson against Henry Cejudo. So I'm seeing a lot of bets on Henry Cejudo here. I think people are fancying his chances. Who have you got, John? Are you fancying the underdog? Are you fancying Mighty Mouse to be dethroned?
I was one of the unfortunate ones who bet on Cejudo the first time round. I thought at the time his striking wasn't particularly great, but he's got that Olympic caliber wrestling, and I genuinely thought his striking's enough to get him in there in range and to get those takedowns. And I genuinely thought he was going to win. And then we all saw what happened. He got wrapped up in that tie clinch and just disposed of viciously in the first round. But yeah, I think it's going to go the same way. I don't think it'll be as emphatic as it was last time. But I do think Mighty Mouse is going to do enough to get the victory. He's as we all know, he's in the argument for the greatest of all time for a reason. He's so well rounded. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it was just a MMA wrestling grappling contest, whether he'd still beat Cejudo, because his MMA wrestling and things is so good. He did struggle against Tim Elliott in the first round, I recall, though, with his unorthodox.
I thought he was getting finished in that fight. I thought that was it.
I also did. Yeah, I remember thinking, is this the time? But I do think Demetrious Johnson wins. I genuinely think this one will go the distance. I think Cejudo will play it a bit wiser this time after what happened the first time round. But ultimately, I think Mighty Mouse gets in and out. He connects with those punches quickly. He catches Cejudo before Cejudo can react. Cejudo may get a few takedowns, but Mighty Mouse is always quick, good in the scrambles, quick at getting back to his feet. So yeah, I think we'll see him another title defence, and then I finally think we'll see him fight TJ Dillashaw. I have got to give a little bit of a quick, interesting story actually. Before I finish talking about this, after Johnson's last victory over Ray Borg, there was all the talk of the super fight with TJ Dillashaw, and it looked like it was going to be pretty much like a done deal.
Yeah,
it was going to happen, and I'm a member of UFC Fight Club, and I have to give a shout out to a guy, Jeff W. That's what we know him by, Jeff W. He actually sat on the row in front of Mighty Mouse on the plane back from UFC 218 in Detroit, where DJ was just there as like one of the special guests and things, and he said that he spoke to him, he chatted to him quite in depth about asking about the TJ Dillashaw fight, and apparently he said that as soon as he asked DJ about the Dillashaw fight, his attitude completely changed and he seemed like really against it. So this guy came on the UFC Fight Club forum and he's like, I was sitting in the row in front of DJ on the way back from Detroit, and I asked him about the TJ Dillashaw fight, and he's like, it's not going to happen. And everyone's like, yeah, it's pretty much a done deal. You're talking rubbish kind of thing. And he's like, nah, mark my words. He goes, I just got the impression that Demetrious Johnson didn't want the fight, and it turned out that was the case. It couldn't get done. Dillashaw obviously said that he was up for it, and it was Johnson that also wasn't particularly keen. So
it's interesting you say that, because when the rumours were flying about of this fight, it was at the start of the year, and I actually pinpointed a card roughly around this time. If you go back, not that anybody will, but you can go back to older tweets if you want to dig them back up. But I actually pinpointed it to late July, early August, because basically what was happening is Mighty Mouse was undergoing surgery on, I think, his shoulder,
Yes, yeah,
whereas TJ said that if he goes down to flyweight, he wants additional time to make sure that he gets down to the weight
yeah,
healthy,
yeah,
that he'll be able to fight for 5 rounds, solid without gassing or anything like that.
yeah,
So when you actually had a look at both of their timescales, they both healed up. Well, Mike Mouse healed up, and TJ would have made his weight and gone through a full camp to meet it around this card.
yeah.
And ironically, they're both on this card. So this card should have had TJ and Mighty Mouse. So the story that you're telling me about this guy you were speaking to on the Fight Club forum, it makes absolute sense if that's the case, because otherwise the fight should have, one of them didn't want it. The UFC would have definitely had it. They
Yeah,
would have
UFC, but yeah,
100% had it. So it was down to one of them.
yeah.
So yeah, I
I
get
don't
that.
want to. I don't want to make wild accusations that Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson was ducking TJ Dillashaw. I don't want to be the man to say those words, but
No,
from what I've
absolutely
heard
not.
and
You're
what
only repeating a story that
exactly
somebody else has told you.
from
The
what I've heard and
legitimacy of that story
yeah,
is unknown, but
yeah, but
it makes sense.
it seems like from like you say from a UFC perspective as well. It seemed that they were all for it, this super fight, and then Mighty Mouse seemed to just completely go off the idea um, and yeah, it never came to fruition. Hopefully it does, because that would be a great fight. That's something I'd definitely like to see. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, same.
that's a story I heard,
No,
and
thanks
maybe
for
that's the
sharing,
reason
man.
we're not seeing that fight.
But yeah, going back to the fight, my breakdown of it, very similar to yours. I think it stays on the feet. I think Cejudo might try and shoot in for a few takedowns, because I still think Mighty Mouse is going to be too much for him. Henry
Yeah,
Cejudo has improved. He has come out with this new karate style
yeah,
that
he's
he
got
mixes up with his
yeah,
wrestling. He knocked out Wilson Heiss. I think Wilson Heiss must have just been in that case thinking, "What the fuck's happening?" I didn't train for karate. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Where's this
So
come from?
so when he got cracked, he probably thought, "Jesus, what happened there?" So yeah, he came out the same way against Sergio Pettis. He looked great. He had to employ a wrestling game plan against Sergio Pettis though,
Of
because
course, yeah,
there was just no. I think Cejudo wanted this title fight, and he had to beat Pettis. And his path to victory, his greatest path to victory, was the wrestling. So he was smart, and he used again that karate style to set up his takedowns really well. In his fight before Heiss, in my opinion, he beat Joseph Benavidez. I was shocked that got a score
I
to
was shocked at
Benavidez.
that as well. Yeah,
But with all said and done, the improvements that Cejudo's made just needs to be astronomical to beat Mighty Mouse.
yeah,
Mighty Mouse at some point will decline, just like every other MMA fighter, or he'll retire before he hits decline. Who knows? Who knows what he's going to do? But at
yeah.
some point, somebody else is going to take that belt from Demetrious Johnson, but now is not the time. If Cejudo wins, I'll be stunned. I'll be shocked, because I just don't think we see a regressed version of Mighty Mouse yet, and the version he is, nobody else is even anywhere close. Everyone's making improvements in the division, which is great. I
Yeah,
actually like the flyweight division. I think it takes a lot of shit off people, but for
yeah. It does
me,
get to
I
hard time,
I
doesn't it?
really like it. I think it's stacked full of talent. It's just when you compare the talent from 1 to 15, it's just nothing compared to the champion. So
Yeah,
I think that's why it takes a lot of shit. You take Mighty Mouse out of there, and that title switches hands so many times.
oh,
It'd
definitely.
be
Yeah,
an exciting division. Ultimately, just coming back to this, I think that like you mentioned, Mike Mouse is going to be in and out, peppering him with shots. I don't think he gets the finish this time. I think it does go to a decision, but I think you're looking at another 50-45 decision, really dominant.
yeah,
So I've got
yeah.
Mighty
I
Mouse to
agree.
win by decision and to retain his title. Then in the main event, we've got the rematch between TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. Now, a lot of people were uh, really not got great things to say about this fight, just purely because of Garbrandt getting an instant rematch. Whereas when TJ lost his belt, he had to go back to the drawing board. He had to win a couple more fights to earn his title shot back. Whereas Garbrandt loses his title on his first defense.
Yeah.
and gets the instant title shot. Now, me personally, I don't hate it at all because these both of these guys have got a general hatred for each other, and I can't think of another scenario apart from maybe John Jones and DC where there is that general hatred between two fighters in any division. So the build up to this is going to be great. The back and forth is going to be great. The hatred is definitely going to be there, and they're both going to be standing in that cage just wanting to put one another's lights out. I don't
Yeah.
see anything bad about that fight, but I do get the whole instant rematch thing. But make no mistake about it. If you think you've had enough of these two fighting each other, if Cody wins, they're going to be running that back a third time, guaranteed. So who have you got, John? Who are you going for?
Yeah, like you said, I love this fight. It doesn't make much sense, like you say. Cody Garbrandt lost his belt first defense against Dillashaw UFC 217. Again, as I said earlier, I was lucky enough to be there. It's a crazy fight, and you could throw these two against each other every other month, and it would be an exciting fight. And like you said, they seem to have a genuine dislike of each other, so that always adds to the hype, always adds to the build up to these fights, and it's also not one of those fights that I think is all hype and then it comes to the fight and it's a bit disappointing. It's a bit of a letdown. I think nine
Definitely
times
not.
out of,
You
nine
could put
times out of ten
these
this brings aggression.
you could put these two guys against each other for the rest of their careers. If these two guys were the only fighters that they fought for the rest of their careers, I would still be a very happy man.
You and me both. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I think Dillashaw is going to get the win. I think he's going to retain the title. I think he's just a little bit smarter. I think he's got better fight IQ. The last fight between the two was pretty much a tale of two rounds. If the first round would have had an extra minute to it, I think Garbrandt would have got the win because he rocked him late on in that round, if I remember correctly. Um,
It wouldn't have even been a minute. It
well,
would have
yeah,
been
probably
10 or 15
10,
seconds.
15 seconds, yeah. But then, yeah, the second round came out. They came out, and Garbrandt was swinging, looking for that finish, and Dillashaw caught him. Um, but ultimately, I think Dillashaw won't let his emotions get the better of him as much as Garbrandt will. I think Garbrandt will really want to get redemption, and I think he'll come out swinging again. And I think he may get caught again and finished. I think it'll be a bit later on in the fight, though. I think it'll be third or fourth round, possibly. But yeah, ultimately, I think Dillashaw will get the win. He'll use that Dominic Cruz style movement. I say that, but Garbrandt out-cruised Cruz when those two fought. So, but yeah, I think that Dillashaw will catch him again later on in the fight. Again, similar fashion. I think it'll be a wild exchange. I think he'll just be that little bit crispy with his technique, and I think he'll catch Garbrandt, and I think he'll put him away again, third or fourth round, retain his belt.
Yeah, I agree. I cashed on Dillashaw in the last fight that they had. I got like plus 150 for him or something crazy like
Yeah,
that. The reasons why I thought he would win that last fight was more weapons in his arsenal, just being the overall better fighter. The
yeah,
only thing, the only two things I think that Garbrandt has over Dillashaw is speed and power. Speed maybe not a not by a greater amount, but definitely power.
yeah,
If Garbrandt didn't have his power, I actually don't know if he'd be as great of a fighter because that's his biggest thing, that's his biggest weapon. But he does have that, and he is a great fighter. So, um, I just think that. Yeah, I think it's going to go a similar way as last time. Weirdly though, in their last fight, I wanted TJ to come out because obviously I had the bet on him. So when I was watching it, it was when I was breaking it down and deciding what I want to happen as well. I wanted TJ to come out really smart. I didn't want him to come out and start swinging and going crazy and getting into
yeah,
brawls because that's where I saw him getting caught. And he
yeah,
did. He came out exactly how I wanted him to come out. He came out smart. He came out reserved, patient, timing his shots. Ultimately, he nearly got finished in the first round. So
yeah,
I'm sat on my sofa thinking, well, shit, I'm gonna lose the bet because he's come out exactly how I wanted him to come out, exactly how he should have come out, and yet he's nearly just got knocked out. Is he going to have recovered? Is Garbrandt going to get another great chance like that? But he comes out in the second round exactly how I didn't want him to come out. He came out reckless, he came out fast, he
Yeah.
came out swinging and brawling, and that's where he caught Garbrandt. So for me, with how I analysed the fight and where I wanted, what I wanted to see from TJ and what I didn't want to see from him was totally like, I got that totally flipped. Really, actually, TJ was better brawling with Garbrandt than he was
Yeah.
being patient, and I think that's maybe because Garbrandt had a lot of time to pick his shots. He had more time to think, and he is a good boxer. He's got a boxing
Yeah, very
background,
crisp boxer,
so
yeah.
maybe if you do pressure Garbrandt and do come out fast and hard at him, maybe that's where you do have most success. So I think TJ's got a few things to consider in this fight for sure. But ultimately, I do see him getting the win again. I don't see takedowns being a factor. I think Garbrandt will be able to stuff any takedowns and see him come in. I don't think he'll allow takedowns to come from close in. I think TJ would have to shoot from a little further out, which will give him, like I said earlier with the JJ Aldrich fight, will just give Garbrandt a little bit more time to see the takedowns, and he works with a lot of great wrestlers himself at Team Alpha Male anyway. So
Yeah.
I think he's got that, and he's got that covered. So it comes down to the striking. But listen, make no mistake about it. Like I said to you, 10 or 15 more seconds in that first round, and Garbrandt would have defended his title and
Yeah,
be defending
definitely.
it again tonight, maybe against TJ or someone else, I'm not sure, but ultimately he would still be the champion. So you have got to give Garbrandt that respect. But ultimately, I think that Garbrandt's chin's been exposed. I don't think a couple of people called it previously. I also mentioned that Garbrandt got absolutely stone cold knocked out in one of his earlier fights. It might have been an amateur
Oh, he
fight.
did, yeah, yeah.
He got
Yeah, I saw the,
absolutely,
I remember seeing the video of that, yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely
he
put to
got
sleep,
destroyed,
didn't
and so people were questioning his chin because of that, but I think actually TJ's exposed his chin. I do think Garbrandt may be a little bit chinny, so we'll see in this fight definitely. But yeah, ultimately I've got TJ Dillashaw. I don't see the fight going the distance, and I don't see a submission. So naturally my pick is TJ Dillashaw to knock Cody Garbrandt out and defend his title once again. And that's all she wrote, guys.
he? Yeah,
So
just before we go, I just thought I'd ask you, there's a
yeah,
lot of
sure.
disgruntled MMA fans out there, especially talking about the quality and things of pay-per-views. We've briefly covered it already today. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this card, this pay-per-view card? On paper, obviously, because we never know what's going to happen. Come the fights, they could look awful on
Well,
paper and they
are we
turn out
talking
brilliantly. Or
are we talking pay per view as in what the Americans and Canadians have to
yeah,
pay for is in regards to the first five fights? Sorry, the last five fights.
we'll go with pay per view because I mean it's pretty widespread knowledge that pay per view numbers haven't been great the last 12 months or so.
I
And
think there's been a few worse, not many. There's definitely been a lot better. I don't know in regards to putting an actual number on it. I think the pay per view was actually worth buying for this one for a few reasons. First of all, TJ and Cody,
yeah,
you got to buy the pay per view for that. You know, if you're not going to be able to watch this fight any other way. Example, like us in England, we have this through BT Sports. So, if we had to pay for pay per view in England, would I be buying it? Yes, I would.
yeah,
You have to watch TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. Then
definitely,
you've also guaranteed violence with Thiago Santos and Kevin Holland. You're going to see a masterclass in Renato Moicano. You're going to see potentially the greatest pound for pound fighter in Demetrious Johnson. Then you've got the weird women's fight which you already spoke about. That again, he probably it is a bit weird that it's there. That's all I can say about it. But the pay per view is definitely worth buying. I don't think it's the strongest pay per view though, but it's
yeah,
definitely worth buying. If I was in a position where I had to pay $60 for it because I couldn't watch it any other way, then yeah, I would buy it.
yeah.
So
I think it took a hit obviously with the Gustafsson fight falling
yeah, for
off.
sure.
That would have been a good fight. That would have been a very entertaining fight, I think. But yeah, ultimately, I'm with you on that. I'd watch it pretty much for the Dillashaw Garbrandt fight alone. So they've sold it to me on that. But I just wanted to get your take on it because obviously we've seen a few moans and groans on Twitter and stuff. Like I say, it's mainly our friends across the pond because they're the ones who have to
I
fork
think
out $60 a month for their pay-per-views. So.
Yeah, and just in brief with it, I think the reasons why you get moans is because you have to pay the same amount for this card than what you would with a super card,
Yeah, very
with the
true.
bigger fighters. So maybe they're seeing, maybe they're just seeing a comparison, but in actual effect, when you come to the super card and you're still paying the same as what you're paying for this card, you're thinking that's, there's a lot more value in that. So I don't know, there's different ways to look at it, but ultimately, if you can't watch it any other way, if you're in another country or whatever, then you need to buy this pay-per-view for sure.
Definitely.
And yeah, that's all she wrote, guys. So John, you're up, my man. Tell everyone where they can find you and the work that you do.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for having me on. I really enjoy coming on here, talking about some fights, getting your perspectives. Like I say, you're the betting expert, so I always follow you rather than myself. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MMA&me. Usually release as much content on there as I can. Usually breaking news stories, fight announcements, etc. I also write regular articles for Fight Post. You can find them on Facebook and Twitter as well, Fight Post, and also MMA UK. So if you want to see any of my work, you can catch me on there or just follow me on Twitter and talk about MMA. It's at MMA&me.
Awesome.
So yeah,
And
that's me.
usual quick message from myself: if you listen to the podcast on the Newsome MMA YouTube channel, it's also available on the Newsome MMA website too, along with so much additional content surrounding all aspects of MMA. It really does have something for everybody on the website. So we've got premium betting services, we've got MMA podcasts, fighter interviews, specific DraftKings section, and specific content coming from the heavy duty fight management team too. Also check out the sponsors of Newsome MMA, which is CBD Live UK. You can access the offers from my sponsorship by clicking any of the banners on the Newsome MMA website, and you can also get 15% off your first order by using promo code Newsome MMA. So finally, once again, don't forget to take a look at the new betting services at newsomemma.co.uk. And that's all from me, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me again, John.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Enjoy
having
the
me.
fights on Saturday night.
I definitely
Thank
will
you,
do.
and
Cheers,
goodbye.
buddy. Cheers.